y que van a tratar de explicar qué es lo que está pasando y por qué lo hacen, ¿no? Pero yo voy a leer un pequeño corto declaración sobre sobre este tema, y luego le daré la palabra al señor Taik y luego responderemos preguntas con las reglas de siempre, que el que pregunte en inglés se le responde en inglés, el que pregunte en español, en español. Pero esta declaración, que la tengo en inglés y en español, esta vez la voy a leer en inglés porque creo que el público norteamericano y el público internacional es el que menos está informado sobre esta situación. En Venezuela estamos muy claros de lo que está pasando, pero afuera no se entiende. Y voy a tratar de explicarla. Yo voy a dar la posición oficial del gobierno de Venezuela y el señor Tai dará la posición de los pacifistas o luchadores por la paz que están ahí en la embajada. Se voy a leer esto muy corto y le doy la palabra al señor Tai. On May the 13th, 2019, a very serious incident occurred at the embassy of the Bolivarian Republic of Venezuela in Washington, D.C. U.S. authorities tried to forcibly evict a group of individuals who were peacefully staying in the facilities with the full authorization of our government, in order to prevent the illegal assault of the premise by violent groups, supporters of the coup d'etat that took place last April the 30th in Venezuela. The objective of the embassy protectors was not to remain as permanent tenants of the diplomatic headquarters, as had been falsely argued for their illegal and forced evacuation. Their goal was to avoid the forceful takeover of the embassy, just as it took place in the two diplomatic premises, namely the headquarters of the former military attaché offices in Washington and the headquarters of the former consulate in New York, both of which were taken over by violent groups with the complicity of the U.S. authorities. Theirs was a preventive action with two additional purposes. Firstly, to inform the public opinion about the abuses committed against the diplomatic headquarters of our republic, and second, to promote respect for international law by the two countries through an agreement that would allow for the peaceful solution of this situation. This type of situation should be resolved by appointing third states with protecting powers in order to maintain the integrity of the diplomatic headquarters. Article 45 of the Vienna Convention states that even in cases of severance of diplomatic relations, the receiving state shall be obliged to respect and protect the premises of the mission. This is only possible through respect for the principle of immunity. For otherwise, if a government uses its territory, paid and protected agents to occupy and violate the diplomatic offices of other governments, the provisions of the convention would be shattered, and all diplomatic offices in the world would be in danger. So our position is simply that we demand and stand for respect of international law and Vienna Convention, which have been violated already in our premises here in the consulate in New York and in the military attaché office in Washington. And they are trying again violently to take over our premises in Washington. And this is a massive violation, not just of Venezuelan rights, but of the rights of all diplomats around the world to work with respect to their physical and moral, I would say also, integrity, in the sense that there is no way that the government of the United States of America can choose who is the right and lawful authority of Venezuela. They can recognize whoever they want, but they cannot designate who is the rightful government in Venezuela, as they are trying to do by changing the facilities and premises of our diplomatic headquarters here to a coup d'etat group. I'm going just to say here, because I think more important than my opinion today is their point of view, so I'm going to give the floor to Mr. Tai Barry. Thank you.
Well, as the Honorable Representative of Venezuela just said, our concerns are very easy to understand. One is the Charter of the United Nations is being violated every single day that the government of the United States tries to recognize someone else to take control in the embassy. We recognize the Vienna Treaty of 1961. that says that the country, even if it's having a problem with the country of that's hosting it, the property that this embassy is sovereign to the country of Venezuela. We went into the embassy of Venezuela recognizing that there could possibly be a war over an embassy. If the embassy in Washington, D.C. is taken, what says that the embassy in Venezuela can't be, the American embassy in Venezuela can't be taken, which sets a pretext for war. The administration in the United States is violating not only UN Charter, but I'm going to be very clear. If you come to the embassy of Venezuela in Georgetown, Washington, D.C., you will see that the United States, our local police departments in Washington, D.C., of which I am a resident, are violating our local laws. They're allowing gangs to beat on us, throw things at us, attack us, rip our hair out of our head. They've allowed gangs to take sledgehammers to the doors of the sovereign protected state building of Venezuela. We've had State Department police constantly there for weeks on end, supposedly to protect the building. Windows have been broken. People have been crawling through spaces to try and get inside. We had our space in front that we had for a month where we did daily protests. When these radical groups of violent Venezuelans, so-called Venezuelans, I don't believe they're all Venezuelan. We know that there are many Cubans in there, Cuban Americans and Nicaraguan Americans, who are extremely violent. I myself was beaten, and in the course of being beaten while trying to set up the very same tents that they had multiples of, I was arrested, spent 56 hours in jail for doing the exact same behavior, only being attacked by it. We, the Embassy Protectors Cooperative, have never laid one hand on any of the violent reactionary Venezuelans, so-called Venezuelans, are in front of these buildings. We have been attacked. People have been sleeping inside the embassy, of which I was sleeping in the embassy for a while. They're sleeping in one single room out of fear. They use sound devices. I am 62 years old. I've had sirens put to my head for 10 minutes, more, for hours, at decibels of 111 decibels. That can make me deaf in years to come. But I am there because I strongly believe in the rights of Venezuela. I also strongly believe in the rights of Americans to use our First Amendment rights of freedom of speech. And I also, as an activist, as a pacifist, for many, many decades now, I realize the pretext of war is right there. We have a warmonger in the White House named John Bolton. Now I'm separating him from our president, who seems to take on actions that are totally illegal all the time. But this particular action is a precept for war. Venezuela has the right to have its own building. There are rules that apply to many countries. There are many embassies in Washington, D.C. that are under protective status. A third country comes in, many times it's Sweden or Switzerland or countries like this, and they protect the sanctity, the sovereignty of the building until whatever problem that the United States is having with the other country can be resolved. The United Nations needs to step forward. There needs to be unity. We can never allow the United States of America, which has a great number of embassies in Washington, D.C., to forcefully take over an embassy. The other day, they put out a so-called eviction notice with no signature, no seal, no statement of what department this came from. The municipal police, which have no authority in this matter, read out an eviction order saying some guy named Vecchio is telling us that we can't be in a building that we were invited into and have been living there for many months. We reject Vecchio. We reject his call to leave the building. We will stay there until a protective status has been made for the Venezuelan embassy and the police stand down. We have had multiple arrests. There have been very few arrests on the other side. We've had tens. We've had people brutalized, women, elderly. There was a 78-year-old man. I'm sure you all read the story of a woman that said that she was pregnant. I was there that night. We went around the corner. It was a 78-year-old man who was bringing toothbrushes to people that he loved. He was bringing them toothbrushes because they don't have toothbrushes. We can't get food into that building. We have people we love, people we've marched with, people that we've been with for years, people that we were in these buildings with for years. All we ask is that they have food until a resolution is taking place. We're not allowed to bring medicine. The elderly that were inside that building were asked to leave. Were forced to leave by our own people, not forced, asked to leave, because they were getting sicker and sicker, because they didn't have their medicines. And this all because of Mike Pompeo, Secretary of State of the United States, and John Bolton. And somehow they have convinced, and there will be multiple lawsuits, I guarantee you, against the Secret Service of the United States of America, who have been acting as agents for the coup government of Guaido and this Vecchio guy. It is wrong. And now, not only that, is I'm a taxpayer in the District of Columbia. My tax dollars are going to pay for municipal police because the secret police realized they have huge lawsuits on their hand. And not only that, is they brutalize people. They put people in hospital. They bloodied people. They're going to have multiple lawsuits after this. And they know that. And so they left the scene and left it to municipal police. Municipal police have nothing to do with a diplomatic mission in Washington, D.C. We've done this many times. We went to the military attaché office when that was also taken up by Mr. Vecchio, and the Secret Service was there. A woman in her 60s was hit, beaten by these radical Guaido people that come to the embassy. There's videotapes of all these things online. Anyone can access them. You go to Popular Resistance, you go to Code Pink, you go to Answer Coalition, and you will see all these videos, and not only that, they're out there. My lawyer for my case already has seen 10. She goes, there's no way they can do anything to you. I know that. But these are their tactics, to put the people that are organizing and trying to help stop a conflict in Venezuela. Civil war, intervention by the United States militarily in Venezuela is possible. And it will mean the death of many people. We're trying to stop that. And all it takes is sitting down at the table of great men like this, with great men in the United States that can work out a reasonable situation where a third country can come in, take over the embassy, take control, just like there are many, Cuba, Iran, I can name others, North Korea. There's many in Washington, D.C. that sit idle, and there are protectorate countries. We want that same status for Venezuela until an agreement can be worked out where Venezuela can rightfully retain sovereignty over their mission in Washington, D.C. One last statement. The group that this Mr. Vecchio and Mr. Guaido, if they took over the embassy, there's many of these radical Venezuelans screaming and yelling and hitting people in front of the embassy. holding up passports saying, I want to renew my passport. There is absolutely nothing diplomatically that Vecchio or Guaido or anybody else they send into that building can do. They can't issue passports. They can't issue visas. If somebody, God forbid, a Venezuelan dies in this country and they want the body removed, the Venezuelan embassy will be unable to help them because they have no representation in Caracas, where the capital of Venezuela is. So for them to say that they're on the right side is absolutely false. This is a coup and nothing but a coup. And we will maintain our presence in this building until the sovereignty of Venezuela is recognized.
James Bays from Al Jazeera, thank you on behalf of the UN Correspondents Association for doing this. Can I ask the ambassador, there's some follow-up points from the gentleman from Code Pink that I'd like to put to the ambassador. Have you requested, I don't quite know how the Vienna Treaty works, have you requested a country to act as your protecting power in Washington under the treaty? Is there any recourse for you, any tribunal, any international court that you can go to? Would you consider taking this perhaps to the UN General Assembly to make a complaint? And if I can add one other point from what the gentleman said there, he referred to John Bolton. Clearly, the US is involved in a war of words with your country. There seem to be some similarities to perhaps the situation between the US and Iran. Do you see similarities?
Yes, thank you very much for those questions. The first one, of course, we have tried over and over to talk to the US authorities and to reach what the Vienna Convention establishes as the way forward to resolve this matter, which is assigning a protective power on both sides. And I absolutely know that the United States is appointing the Swiss government as the protective power in Caracas, and we are respecting that. But we also need that they accept our protecting power. We are proposing Turkey, for example. I don't know if that particular detail has been worked out, but so far the behavior and answer of the U.S. government is the following: they behave towards us as if there was the case of a severance of relations. And we are breaking relations, international relations. In those cases, they appoint a protective power. Fair enough. But when we ask exactly for the same reciprocity, they said, no, we don't recognize you. We recognize the other guy. So, which is ridiculous. They pretend that we will behave as in a case of severance of international relations in Caracas, but they will behave in Washington otherwise, which is ridiculous. Reciprocity is the one sacred principle of international relations. You do as you are done. My point is, there is a practice, this is a tradition of working this thing out, and this is our proposal. Let's appoint any government that you choose. If you don't want Turkey, let's go for another. But that's the actual and the historical way of solving it and fixing this matter. But as Taik said, you also said it. There was a crisis in Iran, and in Iran there were locals taking over the American embassy. If the American embassy in Washington or the U.S. government in Washington allows people of their choosing to take over violently our headquarters, our premises, well, that will open the door for everyone around the world. They are putting at risk or at peril every single diplomat around the world, not just Venezuelans or Americans. That would be an accepted practice by everyone, that we choose the opposition side of any political situation in any government. All governments in the world have a position. So you will choose your friends and send them over as a mob to take over the place. It's very dangerous. It's dangerous for all diplomats around the world. That's why we think that the United Nations is the right place to debate this issue. So where should we go? The General Assembly is one place. The International Court of Justice is another place. But we think that the sensible people, the reasonable people at the State Department, even in the Trump's government, should think twice. They are not just fighting Venezuela, they are putting at risk their own people around the world. Everybody's seeing, watching what's going on.
Volviendo al punto que usted estaba mencionando, ¿nos podría decir en español un poco acerca de cuál es la propuesta que le han hecho ustedes a los Estados Unidos de que Turquía sea el gobierno que tome cargo de la propiedad y cómo iría eso en contradicción con lo que los Estados Unidos ha dicho de que le está dando poder a Guaidó de tomar los bienes de los estados de Venezuela aquí en los Estados Unidos? La segunda parte es, el día de hoy se anunció que se cancelan los vuelos de Estados Unidos hacia Venezuela. ¿Cómo piensa reaccionar el gobierno de Nicolás Maduro? Estaríamos hablando de utilizar otras aerolíneas, Rusia, China, Turquía, y finalmente el grupo de contacto estaba viajando a Caracas hoy para hablar específicamente con el gobierno de Nicolás Maduro. ¿Cómo cree que esto podría avanzar? Porque en la última reunión del Grupo de Lima se habló de que posiblemente se reuniera el Grupo de Lima con los miembros del Grupo de Contacto y eventualmente que Cuba pudiera ser llamado para empezar esta posible negociación. ¿Se habla de esto?
Sí, vamos a comenzar por la última. El grupo de contacto está haciendo sus gestiones por distintas partes del mundo y viene ahora a hablar en Venezuela. Pero lo que sí le aseguro es que el grupo de Lima no sirve para nada. Eso sí es verdad que ahí le digo, no tenemos ningún tipo de ni esperanza ni de intención de conversar con un grupo que está básicamente apoyando un golpe de Estado y más aún, la última declaración del Grupo de Lima en el punto 14, el gobierno de Colombia introdujo por la puerta trasera, pero introdujo un punto muy peligroso, que es que puso a esos 10 países a decir que ellos estaban convencidos de que el ELN, que es un grupo guerrillero interno en Venezuela, en Colombia, que tiene 60 años de historia guerrillera en Colombia, y que, por cierto, acaba de hacer un ataque en la frontera con Ecuador, con el cual, por supuesto, nosotros no tenemos nada que ver, porque queda como 1000 kilómetros del otro lado. Bueno, están diciendo que eso tiene que ver con nosotros y que el ELN es un brazo del gobierno venezolano. Tienen 8 meses repitiendo esta historia. Mire, en septiembre del año pasado, el embajador Carlos Trujillo, el embajador de Estados Unidos en la Organización de Estados Americanos, dijo en un programa de radio donde yo lo cité luego en la sede de la Organización de Estados Americanos, él dijo que Maduro salía porque las fuerzas militares de Colombia iban a sacarlo por un choque militar porque el ELN iba a ser la causa del choque militar. Eso lo anunció como con un acto visionario mágico donde predecía el futuro hace casi 10 meses un embajador norteamericano en Washington. Y ahora el gobierno de Colombia tiene una campaña en las últimas 2 semanas hablando de que todos los días, cada 4 horas hay un choque y dice que la culpa del ELN es nuestra. Y yo no sé cómo van a hacer para explicar el problema con el ELN en Ecuador y cómo van a hacer para explicar el problema del ELN en los últimos 60 años. Eso por el lado del Grupo de Lima no podemos confiar. Por el lado de las aerolíneas, mire, muy grave. Me enteré yo hace 1 o 2 horas de lo que acaba de decidir, es parte del bloqueo. Y le digo una cosa, es muy peligroso porque están tratando de matar al pueblo de Venezuela por privación económica del comercio internacional, alimentos, medicinas, incluso viajes, las familias. ¿Ustedes saben quiénes son los primeros que van a sufrir por esta medida? Los venezolanos que están en el sur de Florida, que yo no sé cómo van a hacer ahora. ¿Entiendes? Mi problema es que esta gente que está tomando estas decisiones, donde el señor Bolton y el señor Mauricio Claver del Consejo de Seguridad Nacional, es el segundo de Bolton para este asunto, se deleitan. Disfrutan mucho viendo cómo sufre el pueblo de Venezuela y están engañando al pueblo de Estados Unidos, manufacturando una guerra, nos están llevando a un conflicto y como sonámbulos, dormidos, el pueblo de Estados Unidos está yendo hacia la guerra sin darse cuenta que esta gente enloquecida está tomando medidas nunca antes vistas. Mire, en la historia de Venezuela no hay memoria de algo tan serio como esto, no hay memoria. No tenemos idea de a quién se le pudo ocurrir, en qué mente enferma y criminal se le puede haber ocurrido una cosa tan bárbara como esta. Y sin embargo, están normalizándola como si fuera algo parte tradicional, que sí lo hacen todos los días los Estados Unidos. El último punto de la embajada, mire, como le repito, lo dije en inglés, lo digo ahora en español, esto se resuelve, esto ha pasado muchas veces, esto no es la primera vez en la historia. Los países rompen relaciones, cada país tiene sus instalaciones, esas instalaciones, mire, el artículo 45 de la Convención de Viena dice que aún en caso de guerra, las instalaciones diplomáticas tienen que ser protegidas por el Estado anfitrión, aún en caso de guerra. Nosotros no estamos en guerra, ni queremos estar. Es más, parte de mi propósito aquí es evitar una guerra. y que lleguemos a un acuerdo. Parte de la lucha de ellos es evitar una guerra. Nosotros no queremos guerra con nadie. No, nosotros no tenemos guerra con nadie desde hace 200 años. Los Estados Unidos en los últimos 200 años solo han tenido 16 años sin guerra. ¿Se da cuenta la diferencia? 16 años sin guerra en 200 años. Y nosotros en 200 años nunca hemos tenido una guerra. ¿Queremos una guerra con Estados Unidos? ¡Loco! No tiene sentido. Pero esta gente sí creo que están enfermos de poder y están llevando a toda la América Latina, porque esto va a ser un problema en todo el continente, a una situación nunca antes vista. Vayamos al acuerdo de los poderes protectores como se hace siempre y no violen la ley internacional como lo están haciendo, como nunca antes lo habían hecho. Ellos ponen en peligro a sus propios diplomáticos en todo el mundo si le hacen esto a los venezolanos, porque en otras partes locos, como los locos de Washington, estos locos que violentos van a decir, ah, sí, los locos de Washington, de Guaidó pueden, los míos también pueden aquí en cualquier otra parte del mundo. Mire qué peligro por un poquito de poder, por ganarse el petróleo de Venezuela, que podríamos perfectamente trabajar como trabajamos en los últimos 100 años, sin guerra y sin invasión. Sí, allá el señor al final.
Señor embajador, ¿cómo puede comentar las palabras del señor Michael Spence que dijo en el Consejo de Seguridad, "You shouldn't be here, you should be going back to your own country"? I'll say that in English. Mr. Ambassador, can you make any comments about the Vice President's comments in the Security Council? You shouldn't be here, please go home.
Thank you. Let me answer in English then. The idea is that the Vice President, as Mr. Bolton also think, that as the United Nations are placed in New York, the United Nations belong to the United States, which is a massive mistake. The United Nations belongs to the world. So this is not the club of friends of the United States. We are not here because they like us. We are here for exercising our rights, but more working to stop the aggression of the United States against our country. So this strange idea that they choose and pick who stays here because they think that this place belongs to us is absolutely mistaken. And it's full of, another example of the arrogance, hubris, also is said in English, arrogance, hubris, and I would say excess in their own thinking that they are so exceptional, they can break international law as they like. Even more, they can force other countries to break the international law, which is absolutely dangerous. It's not only ridiculous, it's dangerous. At the back, and then I will go. Yes.
Mr. Ambassador, this is Stefano Vaccara, Radio Radicale in Rome, La Voce di New York. And this is also a question about Washington. You have an embassy, and now you're saying the United States wants to break the rules. Who is helping you, and of course not in the administration, but in Congress? Do you have anyone, in this moment, the Maduro government has any relations, anyone that is in contact, that you can be in contact in Congress that is acting differently, that maybe has a different approach, and you think that you can, find the solution?
Listen, I'm not going to name friends in Congress, but I'm sure, knowing this country for a long time, that even in Congress, the division regarding Venezuela is not between Democrats and Republicans. My experience tells me that the division is between pro-war and pro-peace. And you can find pro-peace people in all places. And we want to work with pro-peace people. I know soldiers, former CIA agents, former veterans, people that lead all their lives working with wars and with violence, and they don't agree with what's going on now. And on the contrary, I know people who never had touched a weapon, and they are so eager to go and kill Venezuelans. Even the very same puppet they got there, he just signed a letter to send his representative here, the same Mr. Vecchio, to talk to the chief of the South Command in order to plan an invasion to Venezuela. which, by the way, was also discussed on a meeting on the 10th of April in one think tank, which is the propaganda organ of the superpowers, which is the Center for Strategic International Studies in Washington. 40 people met there on the 10th of April to discuss ways to wage war on Venezuela. And you know who was there? The ambassador of Colombia, the ambassador of Brazil, the head of the USAID, which supposedly is a humanitarian agency of the American government, of the US government. I mean, all these strange people, along with 10 Venezuelans, including Mr. Vecchio, were there planning to kill Venezuelans. And that's why we need to talk to all reasonable people, sensible people. Let's stop this madness.
Can I add something?
Yes, he wants to say something.
So, just so you know, yesterday in Santa Monica, California, Tulsi Gabbard spoke out and said, we need to have dialogue. We do need to have dialogue. There are individuals that we can have dialogue with. We just can't have dialogue with people who are throwing things at you, hitting you with sticks, tearing the hair out of your head. You need to have sensible people come to a sensible place and have diplomacy. I can't stress anymore. One of the things we talked about when we first went into the embassy there was what's going to happen to conflict. If the OAS is having conflict with one state, it can't kick that state out. So and you talk about the Lima Group. Lima Group, why don't I organize my own Lima Group and decide who can stay and who can go? It's like, it's a little like the Security Council in the United Nations, where just five different individuals decide everything for everybody else. This is not okay. We need to protect this embassy, and we will.
Mario Villar con la agencia F. Maybe this is more for Code Pink. Could you update us on the current situation at the embassy after what happened earlier this week? I understand there are still 4 people inside. And what are your plans to continue to defend the building?
So let me tell you the irony of the situation right here. You have these wild, crazy people who keep yelling at tourists walking down the streets and others and yelling at us. My people are dying of starvation. They have no water. They have no electricity. Guess what they cheered every single time? When the electricity went off, yay! They cut off their electricity. Water. No water, yay! No food, yay! As a matter of fact, today we got 4 parcels of food inside because Jesse Jackson showed up. There was one guy who violently attacked these people. The Washington, D.C. Police Department stood by and watched. We were grateful that they stood by and watched him violently. It took 6 people to hold him back so that the food could be delivered. We were grateful that they didn't step in and arrest all of us for trying to deliver food to people. This is the irony. Today, there are at least 4 individuals inside the embassy there. They plan to be there even if they have no food or no water or no electricity. We are committed. Today there was 100 people on our side of the street. We've been regulated to the other side of the street. And for some reason, these wild, it looks like football hooligans. They paint themselves all up and they attack you, and it's really like football hooliganism. They have tents and everything set up, and we will be there. We have plans. We've tried to protect the embassy, keep it clean. We have cleaning squads. We were cleaning everything, watering the plants, taking care of everything there. And these people are smashing windows, breaking down doors, throwing things inside. It's atrocious.
Yes, please.
Hi, Kevin Penner from Sankei Shimbun. Thank you for holding this press conference. I apologize if this question is a little bit long and I might butcher some of the names, but there's a report from 2 days ago that says Major General Manuel Ricardo Christopher Figueira and Cesar Omana, a Miami-based businessman, reportedly met with Michael Moreno, the president of Venezuela's Supreme Court, and that he was planning to issue a ruling to reinstate power to the National Assembly, of which he stripped power in 2017. And the report suggests that the ruling would call for free and fair elections and that Moreno wanted the Supreme Court and thereby himself as president to take power temporarily. Can you confirm that Moreno was considering this ruling, that the Venezuelan government knew about these meetings that he was holding, and what's your opinion on why the recent coup attempt failed?
Okay, thank you very much for that question. It's a fair question. You know why? Because that is how they blinker you all and throw dust at your eyes and put you to talk about things which are so far out. As the coup failed miserably, it was one of the clumsiest thing ever, but as dangerous as clumsiest as I said before. The only way they had to justify their massive failure is confounding everyone. This pure propaganda. I mean, now they are using psychological operations, and I can quote Mr. Bolton himself saying, perhaps in another context, but he believes in this kind of mantra, which is, quoting Mr. Churchill, he says that the truth has to be protected by a wall of lies. That is actually what he's doing. And Mr. Pompeo himself said in another meeting in Texas, I guess, in a university in Texas, that he learned at the CIA that we cheat, steal, and lie every single day. There are courses for it, he said. At the CIA, they are trained to do exactly that. Cheating, steal, and lie. I mean, this is the kind of people who throw that kind of trash at you and then pretend that we will begin to discuss every single detail. Come on, sorry, I'm not going to go that low to discuss the psychological infotoxic operations of the American warmonger leaders at this moment in time.
But does the Venezuelan government deny that Moreno was considering this ruling? Were you aware that
Mr. Moreno is the head of the Supreme Court. How come can he be considering anything? But that's what he said. Mr. Bolton said exactly the same right at 9 in the morning of the 30th of April. I mean, the thing is that they were waiting for something, and as it didn't happen, then the whole operation failed. They began to name and shame everyone just to create not just discomfort, fractions and divisions within the leadership of the country and the authorities of the country, not even the leadership. I mean, my point is, all these stories came afterwards as a way to explain the failure. And it's ridiculous for us to believe that actually happened.
You don't believe that meeting actually took place?
I don't believe that at all. I mean, how can I believe a man who, for his whole life, was the most radical, revolutionary, loyalist, and then the next day began to say, yes, Mr. Trump, please invade my country? It's ridiculous. Yes, please.
Embajador, buenas tardes. Vemos que también el ataque al gobierno de Venezuela no solamente es en la embajada en Washington, D.C., sino también acá en las Naciones Unidas. ¿Qué información o cuál es su reacción a la reunión a puerta cerrada del Consejo de Seguridad el día de ayer sobre Venezuela y también al encuentro del Grupo de Lima, de embajadores del Grupo de Lima con representantes de Juan Guaidó en estos últimos días para presionar a los países de África y de Asia acá en la ONU?
Gracias. Mire, el Grupo de Lima está desesperado por el fracaso del golpe. Tan sencillo como eso. Como el golpe fracasó, no hayan qué hacer. Lo primero que hicieron fue llamen al Comando Sur para que invada, desesperados. Y el Comando Sur no haya qué hacer con estos señores rogándole. Esto es un caso insólito. Mire, yo le voy a leer esto un momento porque en verdad es muy importante. Artículo 128, lo voy a leer en inglés y en español. Artículo 128 del Código Penal venezolano. Dice, cualquiera que, de acuerdo con una nación extranjera o con enemigos exteriores, conspire contra la integridad del territorio, de la patria o contra sus instituciones republicanas o la hostilice por cualquier medio para alguno de estos fines, será castigado con la pena de presidio de 20 o 30 años. Let me read it in English. Article 128 of our Penal Code. Any person who, prior agreement with a foreign nation or foreign enemies, conspires against the territorial integrity of the homeland or against its republican institutions, or by any means becomes hostile against it, pursuing any of these purposes, shall be sentenced to incarceration punishment ranging from 20 to 30 years. ¿Ven lo que quiero decir? Fue un golpe de Estado, un crimen, algo nunca visto en Venezuela, no el golpe de Estado, sino que luego salgan corriendo a pedir la invasión militar. Eso nunca lo habíamos visto, conspirando con una potencia extranjera para que maten a los militares y a todos los venezolanos, incluyendo toda mi familia y la familia de todos nosotros que vivía allá. Entonces, esa clase de criminal de guerra es un delito de lesa humanidad. Pero entonces los colombianos también se desesperan y el Grupo de Lima y empieza a fabricar excusas, lo que se llama una operación de falsa bandera, para ver cómo hay un choque militar. Y además de eso aparece el señor Eric Prince, el famoso Eric Prince de Blackwater, que dice que él propone un ejército de 5.000 personas, mercenarios asesinos, con 40 millones de dólares que puede invadir Venezuela desde Colombia. Lo propuso en la Casa Blanca. Pero se dan cuenta de la calidad de psicópatas que están al mando de este país. Entonces, ese es el tipo de gente que llega al Consejo de Seguridad y dice que está muy preocupada por la situación venezolana. Es muy peligroso lo que está pasando porque están desesperados porque falló el golpe. Y es un golpe criminal que está penado por nuestras leyes. Este artículo no lo inventaron ayer, tiene como 50 años ahí. Entonces, digo, ¿dónde vamos ahora? No puede haber más impunidad. Mire, Simón Bolívar, el libertador de Venezuela, decía en la Guerra de Independencia que por cada rebelión había un perdón y por cada perdón una rebelión, y que esas eran las causas de los males de la República. Bueno, en esta situación estamos igual. La impunidad es tal que por cada golpe y cada crimen que esta gente comete hay un perdón y por cada perdón un nuevo golpe. Y ahí están todos corriendo en las embajadas pidiendo perdón para planear el próximo golpe, como lo están haciendo desde el año 2002. Tienen 17 años en esto. Entonces nosotros creemos que ya llegó la hora de aplicar la justicia y creo que para allá vamos.
One question for Mr. Berry, another one for the ambassador. Mr. Berry, what is the plan if the police enters the embassy and tries to arrest the people that is inside?
Well, we shouldn't really talk about our plans. I will tell you that there is a plan. I think the plan is, it will be a peaceful plan. We intend not to have anyone injured or hurt. I'm sure that, there's many techniques you can use, lockdowns, you can use arm in arm. There's all kinds of things that we've done in the past to stop things like the Iraq War. How did that work out for you? Or Libya, we protested that one. We were in the Libyan embassy, as a matter of fact. How did that work out? We're trying to stop those kinds of actions. I don't want the people of Venezuela to suffer because some reactionary group, it seems to be very small, is trying to impose its will. And that there's an American minority inside the White House. And I'll admit, we're not a very super educated people. We don't know. There's we're 350 million people. They don't understand, but we seriously understand. I've been to Yemen. I was in Tahrir Square. I saw democracy up close. And then I saw what happens when it's stolen from them. And 650 people were murdered in one day in Rabaa Square in Cairo. I've seen, I can tell you that this is a bad plan that the United States government, if it has a plan at all, and its plan is to sow discord. And we shouldn't make children and women and elderly in Venezuela suffer. Sanctions are a weapon. They are the most egregious weapon. They destroy, they kill, they murder, just as a tank does or a bomb. And we need to stop these sanctions now. Come to the table. I'll tell you another fact. Do you know that by population, by percentage of population, Nicolas Maduro won more votes than Donald Trump did? Now, go to Venezuela and try to explain to a Venezuelan the Electoral College. They would say that's the screwiest system they've ever heard. They would say you're ripping off the people. You're stealing the election. From all outside, it looks like if Hillary Clinton, the Democratic Party, boycotted the election, and then suddenly Hillary Clinton said, I'm the new president, what would happen in the United States? You know and I know, civil war, craziness.
Y una pregunta para el embajador, perdón. ¿Usted cree que una solución a la crisis en Venezuela puede llegar a través del grupo de contacto internacional? ¿O cómo cree que va a acabar este estancamiento, este impasse?
Nosotros creemos que el diálogo es permanente y nunca puede terminar, pero el diálogo tiene que ser entre los venezolanos. Lamentablemente, un sector de los venezolanos tiene un jefe exterior, pero a ese sector, por ejemplo, que ahora dice que ya no quiere diálogo, que lo que quiere es la guerra, otras personas le han dicho, líderes de otros países le dicen, mire, si fracasó una vez, bueno, que fracase 10, que fracase 15, que fracase 20, pero nunca podemos dejar de hablar nosotros con nuestros compatriotas. Esa es la única vía. Si es el grupo de contacto, será otro grupo, cualquiera que sea. Yo no me voy a casar con un solo grupo porque sé que hay muchas iniciativas rodando al mismo tiempo, pero la idea es esta. El diálogo y la negociación es la única manera de salir de esto en paz. Nosotros no queremos exterminar a la oposición, tenemos 20 años en esto, resistiendo precisamente. Por cierto, ayer salió, léanlo. Búsquenlo, una publicación de el Ministerio de Defensa norteamericano, cómo apoyar la resistencia, un trabajo como de 300 páginas, cómo apoyar la resistencia en los países que ellos quieren desestabilizar. Nosotros somos un caso perfecto del gobierno de Estados Unidos por 20 años apoyando a los grupos desestabilizadores para impedirnos gobernar Venezuela. Pero al final esto tiene que ser resuelto por los venezolanos. Lo que nunca va a ocurrir es que vengan ejércitos extranjeros creyendo que van a resolver lo que nosotros los venezolanos solo podemos resolver. Una y dos. Sí.
Embajador, gracias. ¿Nos puede repetir, perdón, el tema de Turquía, lo del tercer país? ¿No se puede explicar?
Sí, miren, el artículo 45 de la Convención de Viena establece que en caso de rompimiento de relaciones, el modo en que las instalaciones diplomáticas se protegen porque tienen todavía la inmunidad y no pueden ser dispuestas por el gobierno anfitrión o el Estado anfitrión, se deben proteger, aún en caso de guerra, dicen, tienen que ser protegidas. ¿Cómo se hace si no tienen relaciones? Cada país nombra lo que llama un poder custodio o un poder protector. En el caso de nosotros, el gobierno de Estados Unidos ya nombró, dice que quiere que Suiza sea el poder protector de sus instalaciones en Caracas, su embajada. Y nosotros estamos, bueno, muy bien, eso es una opción, pero para que eso tenga efecto debe existir algo que se llama reciprocidad. Hagámoslo perfectamente como lo hacen todos los países del mundo y acepten en Washington un poder protector de las instalaciones venezolanas, que es el modo en que se funciona esto acá. El gobierno de Estados Unidos hasta ahora dice que no. Y no entendemos por qué, porque quiere que nosotros cumplamos la ley y lo estamos haciendo, pero su parte de cumplimiento de la ley no lo está haciendo. Si nosotros tenemos una propuesta que es Turquía, puede ser cualquier otro, ¿verdad? Esa es una, y si no le gusta buscamos otro. Lo que quiero decir es que estamos explorando. Y la parte que se niega a aceptar es el gobierno de Estados Unidos. Y mientras tanto, hace todo el juego en la embajada de la violencia, las humillaciones. Lo que está pasando en la embajada, por eso yo le doy importancia, es un caso micro de lo que está pasando en Venezuela. Es un golpe de Estado en acción, donde quieren privar a los que están dentro de la embajada de comida, de electricidad, donde los humillan con insultos racistas, donde le aplican violencia, donde el gobierno de Estados Unidos apoya todo con propaganda. Es igual en Venezuela. Quieren hacernos un bloqueo, matarnos de hambre, robarnos el dinero, nos humillan con insultos racistas, nos quieren aplicar la violencia. Es lo mismo, es una pesadilla de supremacista, racista, como nunca la habíamos visto. Y nosotros no la vamos a aguantar. La negociación y los procedimientos diplomáticos ya establecidos son los que deben funcionar, pero ellos los están rompiendo para peligro de todo el sistema. Es un evento sistémico, no nada más con Venezuela.
Can I just add one thing?
¿Ya?
Just so you know, we've been there for 2 months now. In 2 months, the United States, in all its court systems and all its judiciaries and lawyers and State Departments and all that, has not come up with one law that allows them to take us out of there. Think about this. They've had hundreds of police, different police organizations focused on this building, and they can't get us out. Yesterday, they walked even inside, and they still couldn't get us out. They put out a fake eviction order. They still can't get us out. That tells you it's because it's illegal.
Más todavía, ellos dicen, como por todas partes del mundo, la propaganda es 50 países reconocen al gobierno de Guaidó. Bueno, nosotros somos el gobierno de las Naciones Unidas, donde hay 193 países. Y somos el único gobierno legítimo acordado por todo el mundo. Lo demás es un invento. Pero además, como dijo él bien, si tomaran la embajada, no pueden emitir ni un pasaporte, no pueden ningún documento porque no tienen autoridad. Y en Venezuela no controlan ni un carro de policía, nada. ¿No vieron lo que hicieron el golpe del 30 de abril? Que llamaron a la violencia militar y se quedaron solos en un puente y ahora están todos escondidos en la embajada. ¿De qué se trata esto? Un gobierno escondido en embajada. Es un gobierno serio. Un gobierno que quiere la violencia y ahora la llama a la invasión extranjera contra su propio pueblo. Eso es un gobierno serio. O sea, esta patética fantasía entreguista, como le he llamado yo antes, no puede tener éxito en las Naciones Unidas y en la ley internacional. Una última pregunta a las... Ya.
Thank you, Ambassador. I actually have 2 questions. Jeffrey Sachs, who is very much respected by the establishment, has presented a report documenting that the economic problems and crisis in Venezuela are the consequence of the U.S. sanctions. Nobody talks about the report. Very few people know about it. Yet Jeffrey Sachs is universally recognized at the United Nations. He's enormously influential. Why is this report being ignored or buried? And as a follow-up question, I was quite astounded when so publicly Mr. Guaido asked for the United States to intervene in his country militarily. I would like to know if there is any, it's quite astounding. Is this a massive, I mean, to ask another country to invade your country seems to me to be very strange, and yet he's doing it, and it's being permitted, and nobody's talking about it.
Thank you for the question. First, I don't remember any instance in Venezuelan history where one leader asked for a foreign power to invade and fight their own compatriots. I mean, there is no instance, there is no example. This is extraordinary that one person that self-proclaimed as the president of the whole Venezuelan people is asking a foreign army to come into our territory and kill Venezuelans. This is treason, as simple as that. And an international crime and a crime against humanity. And the problem is that the media is trying to normalize, and the Senator Marco Rubio told the media off after the 30th of April, saying, don't call it a coup. It's not a coup. It's a liberation process, Operación Libertad. It's a liberty of freedom operation. Don't call it a coup. Washington Post, again, call the whole American media to, don't call it a coup, please. Call it an uprising. Everybody is trying to gaslight, is the actual word here. Gaslight in front of your eyes. You could see a coup and they are telling you, like mesmerizing, no, it's not a coup, don't believe it, it's not a coup. They are freedom fighters, like the Contras in Nicaragua. It's ridiculous. I mean, my point is, we have criminals at the helm here are criminals in a coup there, and they are complicitly working together. And as far as the blockade, it's another point. Sanctions kill. Sanctions are criminal. We are launching a campaign called Unblock Venezuela, Desbloquea Venezuela. And we are trying to inform the whole world which are the actual effects, which, by the way, there is a group here that also works with the people in Washington, with the violent, hatred groups, that they are pretending to deny the effects of sanctions. They are going all over the place, TV stations and big media, corporate media, and saying, no, American sanctions are nothing. It's the whole clumsiness and mistakes and corruption of Mr. Maduro. Well, if we are so clumsy and incapable of working our own economy, why do they need sanctions for? They need sanctions because they need to deprive. They are waging a siege war. It's a kind of medieval war. They are depriving, they are starving our people, and they are pretending not to, but they have the intellectuals, scientific, they say the very same, I'm going to name it, the very same economists, very prestigious economists here, Venezuelan American economists, called Ricardo Hausman. He was working at Harvard until a few weeks ago, and he is now the representative of Mr. Guaido at the Inter-American Development Bank. He is the same person who was calling for an invasion 3 years ago. He was the genius who came up with the idea of a military invasion to solve the problem in Venezuela. And he's the very same person who says that sanctions has no effect whatsoever on Venezuela right now. But he's the very same person that in 2004 said that Chavez didn't win the elections, that the opposition won, and he had the proof. We're still waiting for those proofs. We're still waiting after 15 years. The last one, yes.
Embajador, sabemos que Rusia y China han ofrecido ayuda humanitaria. Se habla de que esta semana llegaron algunos aviones de China con ayuda humanitaria. ¿Cómo ve el proceso de ahora en adelante? Porque durante la reunión entre Pompeo y Lavrov, ambos dijeron que estaban en posiciones distintas frente al tema de Venezuela, pero que lo que sí estaban buscando era converger en el área de ayuda humanitaria. ¿Cómo lo ve el gobierno de Nicolás Maduro? Y la última parte es, ¿de qué manera ve la solución? Porque usted dice que hay varias opciones, varios procesos. ¿A cuál sería el que usted cree que podría apuntar más?
El que llegue primero a un acuerdo. Yo no puedo predecir una carrera de caballos a la salida. Pero sobre todo, mire, el señor Pompeo no se le puede creer nada. Es una ingenuidad quien crea por lo que diga Pompeo. Y una de las cosas que ustedes lo vieron acá en el Consejo de Seguridad 2 o 3 veces, es la actitud de guerra fría y arrogante del gobierno de Estados Unidos, que el problema es en Venezuela, y él dice, yo voy a resolver ese problema con Rusia, que está allá. Y habla enfrente de nosotros con los rusos y dice, yo sé que a ustedes le deben dinero, pero ese dinero lo van a perder porque en la Guerra Fría ustedes perdieron y nosotros ganamos. O sea, para el señor Pompeo, nosotros no somos un país independiente. Somos una colonia rusa que él va a liberar con sus fuerzas militares. Es el tipo de errores de diseño en la aproximación, el entendimiento. O sea, él no conoce Venezuela, no sabe lo que dice. Pero él dice que se va a ir a Moscú a resolver el problema de Venezuela. No sabe lo que dice. Los problemas de Venezuela se resuelven en Venezuela. ¿Entiendes? Tenemos 200 años de independencia, bien o mal. País con todo su problema. Pero somos nosotros los que decidimos. Este señor enloquecido cree que va a resolver el problema en Moscú porque él cree que los rusos nos mandan. Como él manda a Guaidó. Y como Guaidó le ruega que vaya una invasión. Se equivocó, nosotros no somos Guaidó. Somos patriotas. Estamos orgullosos de ser venezolanos, no lloramos por una visa. Queremos la independencia de nuestro país. No lo entiende. ¿Cuándo lo entenderá? Espero que sea pronto. La ayuda humanitaria con quien respete los principios de independencia, neutralidad, imparcialidad, consentimiento. Quien no lo haga no puede estar en Venezuela. Tan sencillo como eso. Y las Naciones Unidas estamos trabajando. Muchísimas gracias, muy amable.
Thank you.